Last time a dire wolf howled on Earth, humans were still living in caves. That was over 10,000 years ago. Since then, this legendary predator has existed only in fossils, fantasy novels, and a certain medieval-themed TV show. But in 2025, against all odds, dire wolves are no longer just ancient history. They're alive, walking, eating, howling. This isn't science fiction. It's the story of extinction, resurrection, and the fine line between what nature took away and what humans are now daring to bring back. The legend and the misconception. If you've heard of dire wolves, there's a good chance it was thanks to Game of Thrones, massive mythical beasts that could tear enemies in half. But the real dire wolf wasn't quite so exaggerated. Yes, they were big, about 20 to 25% larger than today's grey wolves. Stockier, with broader skulls and stronger jaws, but they weren't monsters. They were apex predators of the Ice Age, powerful hunters roaming North and South America for tens of thousands of years. They thrived during the Pleistocene epoch alongside mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant sloths. And then, they vanished. But why? The fall of a titan. Dire wolves didn't go extinct overnight. Their decline happened during a turbulent chapter in Earth's history. Roughly 10,000 years ago, as the Ice Age ended, global temperatures rose. That climate shift triggered widespread extinction among large prey species, the bison, camels, and ancient horses that dire wolves depended on. With their main food sources disappearing, dire wolves suddenly faced a harsh new reality: adapt or starve, and they couldn't adapt fast enough. Their closest cousins, grey wolves, were smaller, faster, and more flexible in what they could hunt. Dire wolves, built for brute force, were left behind in a world that no longer needed giants. Some researchers suggest competition also played a role. Dire wolves and grey wolves likely fought over territory, prey, and dominance. But the grey wolves were better suited for survival in a changing world. By the time human civilizations began to rise, the dire wolf was already a memory. Buried clues and a breakthrough tooth. For decades, scientists studied dire wolf remains pulled from places like the La Brea tar pits in California. Thousands of skulls, jaws, and bones gave us a solid idea of what they looked like, but no usable DNA. Heat, acidity, and time had degraded most of the genetic material. Then came the lucky break. Roughly 6 years ago, a single tooth found in a cave, one that had somehow avoided extreme environmental damage, contained fragments of ancient DNA. Enough to sequence a rough version of the dire wolf genome. Not complete, but enough to work with. Later, researchers extracted even better DNA from the petrous bone of a skull, one of the densest bones in the body, located near the inner ear. That gave them up to 14x genome coverage, enough to start rebuilding not just an idea, but an animal. To bring back the dire wolf, scientists didn't clone it directly. That wasn't possible. You can't clone something unless you have a complete, living cell, and the last dire wolf cells died thousands of years ago. Instead, they used genetic engineering. They started with grey wolves, which are 99.5% genetically identical to dire wolves. From there, they identified the key genetic differences, the small stretches of DNA responsible for size, skull shape, coat color, vocal patterns, and other traits. Then came the high-precision editing. Using CRISPR and other tools, scientists modified 14 genes across 20 locations in grey wolf cells. These tweaks were designed to push those cells closer to the original dire wolf blueprint. The edited cells were then transferred into egg cells, eggs that had been stripped of their own DNA. These eggs developed into embryos, which were implanted into large surrogate dogs. The result? On October 1st, 2024, 2 pups were born, Romulus and Rahais. A third, a female named Kisi, joined them a few months later. Are they really dire wolves? That's the question that sparks the biggest debate. Are these animals truly dire wolves or just slightly altered grey wolves? Scientifically speaking, they aren't 100% genetically identical to the originals. That level of precision just isn't possible right now. The extinct genome had too many gaps, but these animals look like dire wolves. They move like dire wolves. They howl with a sound that hasn't echoed across the planet for over 10,000 years. And most importantly, they carry many of the traits we associate with the ancient species, traits we believed were lost forever. They may not be perfect clones, but they are, for all practical purposes, living embodiments of the dire wolf. In the northern US, its exact location kept secret for security reasons. The preserve simulates a Pleistocene-like environment, giving the wolves room to roam, explore, and slowly exhibit natural behaviors. At 5 months old, Romulus and Rahais already weigh over 80 pounds. By adulthood, they're expected to reach nearly 150. They eat a mix of bison, horse, and deer meat, some raw, some whole carcasses. Researchers are slowly introducing hunting behaviors and social dynamics between the pups. The goal isn't just to raise them, but to observe what happens when ancient instincts begin to wake up. And they are waking up. The wolves have shown early signs of stalking and pack formation, suggesting that even after thousands of years, some hunting behaviors are genetically hardwired. What this means for conservation. Bringing back a dire wolf might sound like a flashy experiment, but there's a deeper purpose here. The same technologies that made this resurrection possible are already being used to save animals that are still with us, but barely. Take the American red wolf. Only a few dozen are left in the wild. Their gene pool is so narrow that inbreeding threatens their survival. Using cloning and gene editing techniques refined through the Dire Wolf Project, scientists have now created 4 genetically diverse red wolves. These wolves could help revitalize the entire population. And it's not just red wolves. The team behind the dire wolf is also working on reviving the woolly mammoth, the dodo, and the Tasmanian tiger. But more importantly, the tools developed for those projects could help prevent the next wave of extinctions. In a world facing rising temperatures, shrinking habitats, and vanishing biodiversity, this isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a lifeline. The risk and the responsibility. Of course, not everyone is convinced. Bioethicists have raised serious concerns. What if re-engineered animals suffer unforeseen medical issues? What if genetic edits affect more than just appearance or behavior? Genes don't operate in isolation. A tweak meant to strengthen bone density could also impact organ development or brain function. Then there's the deeper question, should we be doing this at all? Some argue that by reviving extinct animals, we're just repeating the same mistake, interfering with ecosystems we don't fully understand. Others fear that wealthy collectors could try to buy de-extinct animals for private zoos, turning something extraordinary into a novelty. And yet, the dire wolves born in 2024 are not just products of science. They're symbols. Symbols of what's possible when human curiosity, technology, and responsibility meet. A howl into the future. So why did dire wolves go extinct? The world changed. Their prey disappeared. Their bodies weren't built for what came next. But in 2025, they returned. Not just through science, but through imagination, determination, and a belief that extinction doesn't have to be forever. Whether you see them as marvels or mistakes, one thing is certain. The howl of the dire wolf is no longer just an echo from the past. It's a voice, alive again, calling us to look forward and to decide carefully what we bring with us.